Hello everyone, and welcome to the Spectrum project, which is your final project for the CSS sections of the course. So for this project, you're going to be digitally recreating your own version of the art piece known as Spectrum 5 by an artist known as Ellsworth Kelly. And it's currently located at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, known as the Met. Let's take a look at what that art piece actually looks like. So it looks something like this, and what we're going to have you do is create your own little web page that has a very similar look to this. Basically, you'll be creating a set of table cells that have a color, and you're going to mess around with the border, the margins, and the padding, which we learned about the box model CSS, to space those table cells correctly so that it has some sort of appearance similar to this piece of art. So you're going to be creating, again, your own smaller version for the web page using what you've learned about the box model. And you're also going to learn how to pick a color palette to use based off a few websites that I'm going to show you now. Let's take a look at an example of what this project may look like and how to choose a color palette. I'm going to jump to my browser now. Alright, so here I am at my browser, and I have a representation of what your final project may look like. It's going to be some sort of variation on this. And what we have here are essentially table cells. So here, each of these little blocks is a TD object inside of a table. And you'll notice that we were able to use the box model to add a little bit of spacing in between them, which is what you're going to do. And then you also notice that we have kind of a funky font here. So your project is going to be the following. You're going to choose a color palette. In a second, I'll show you the website for choosing a color palette. Then you're going to assign that color palette to some table cells on your web page. And then you're also going to choose a font. Either use fontlibrary.org or Google Fonts. You're going to connect this heading, it can say whatever you want, to your new font, and you're going to connect the color palette you choose to these table cells and use the box model to kind of shape and stretch these so they look similar to the Spectrum 5 art piece. So as far as choosing your color palette, you can choose color palettes at this website. coolors.co or coolers.co or colors.co, depending how you want to pronounce it. Basically, it's colors with an extra o.co. And basically, this is just a color scheme generator. If you scroll down here, you'll notice that there's already tons of pre-made color schemes. So you can click on View All Palettes, and it will show you various palettes. So choose any palette here that you like. This is just on Explore, but you can click here on Best, wait for it to refresh, and it will show you the most popular color palettes that are chosen here. So for instance, this My New Palette is the one I chose for this Spectrum 5 piece. So you just come here, click on the palette, so click on View, and it will generate the palette for you. You don't need to watch the tutorial, just hit exit here, and here we can see the hex codes for each of these colors. And those are the hex codes you're going to be using for your CSS file. So again, you just, in your HTML file, create the table cells needed to create something that looks like this. Again, this is just a table with one row and 5 table cells in it. And you'll also choose a font if Google Fonts, using the knowledge we learned about in CSS Level 2. So connect a font of your choice, then create the table and connect it to some sort of palette by inserting these hex codes into your CSS. Alright, so that's basically it. If you have any questions, feel free to post them to the Q&A forum. Again, you don't need to choose the exact same color palette or the exact same font, and your spacing and padding doesn't have to be exactly the same as mine here. Just get a general idea of how to incorporate color palettes from that online resource, fonts from Google Fonts, and the box model for spacing of these table cells. Those are the 3 main things I want you to get out of this project. Choosing a font of your choice, incorporating it into your website, choosing a color palette, being able to grab those hex codes and incorporate it into your coloring of your site, and using the box model to shape out these table cells. Okay, thanks everyone, and I'll see you at the next lecture where we're going to code through an example solution. Again, not every solution to this is going to look the same, but just get the general idea. I'll see you at the next lecture.